According to a new study, legalizing medical marijuana causes no increase in crime. And in fact, it may even reduce certain types of crimes. Interesting. Criminology researchers at UT Dallas said, quote, looked at crime rates for all 50 U.S. states from 1990 to 2006. During this period, 11 states legalized medical marijuana. The researchers examined legalization's effect on what the FBI calls Part 1 crimes, which include homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, and auto theft. After controlling for a host of known factors related to changes in crime rates, we accounted for factors such as poverty, employment, education, even per capita beer sales, among other things. We found no evidence of increases in any of these crimes for states after legalizing marijuana for medical use. In fact, for some forms of violence, homicide, and assault, we found partial support for declines after the passage of this legislation. Now, my response to this entire study is, duh. I know a lot of people might think it's counterintuitive, but once it's explained to you why this happens, then everybody has the aha effect. You know what that is? We've all had that before. When somebody explains something to you that you didn't get before, and you go, oh, I see. I call that the aha effect. So let me explain what happens here. Well, first of all, let me just say this, that in a lot of these states that have medical marijuana, let's be real, a lot of the times people get a medical marijuana card from a doctor and they don't really need it and they just use it recreationally. Now, I have zero problems with that at all. Everybody knows that. I talk about that on a daily basis, and in fact, I think that should be the case. So if you have the ability to use it as like a loophole and get it through medical marijuana, by all means, be my guest, go right ahead. But that's what happens in a lot of these cases. So, with that being the case, realize that when you have legalized drugs, what happens is the black market can no longer function. When you criminalize drugs, the black market has a monopoly on the product. Okay, and when the black market has a monopoly on the product, it is totally unregulated, which means that if there's some sort of a dispute or a disagreement or a problem, the issue is solved with guns in drive-bys as opposed to solving a problem wearing suits and ties and going through the justice system and going to court. If there's a dispute between Budweiser and a customer, they go to court. If there's a dispute between your local cocaine dealer and somebody, it might end with Uzis and dead people. So the problem is that the drug is illegal. It's not that the drug is a problem in and of itself and it should be illegal. All of the violence and crime that's associated with the drugs is because those drugs are in the black market. Now keep in mind, this isn't just theoretical, okay? This has also been proven with prohibition in the United States when it came to alcohol. Alcohol was illegal for an extended period of time in the U.S. And when alcohol was illegal, what happened? You ever heard of the mafia? That's how they became this powerhouse, because they got into the booze business. They had all the speakeasies, and they made the alcohol and distributed it, and they got incredibly rich. And also, what else happened in that situation? Well, since they're making the alcohol in this unregulated environment, they're often making it in people's bathtubs. And when you make it in the bathtubs, you have to cut it with these certain chemicals that oftentimes could be toxic. So every once in a while, you'd get a bad batch of alcohol, and somebody would die. Just from taking one shot of vodka or one bad drink, boom, you're dead. That wouldn't happen if those things were legalized. In fact, since alcohol has been legal, that doesn't happen. People might die from overdosing and drinking too much and getting alcohol poison, but it wouldn't be just from one shot that has a bad batch. So here's another example of that. Remember the situation with Philip Seymour Hoffman when he passed away? There were a lot of articles that said there was a bad batch of heroin going around that wasn't just heroin. It was a much stronger opiate that is used for cancer patients that are terminal, that are in the latest stage possible before they die. It was like 30 or 60 times more powerful than heroin. So he took the amount that would be a normal heroin dose that he's used to, but since it's 30 or 60 times more powerful, it was an overdose and he died. Okay, that wouldn't have happened if heroin was legal. He wouldn't overdose, he wouldn't have died, because it would have been regulated and you could get proper doses. I know that part is counterintuitive, I agree, but guess what? It's the reality of the situation. Same thing with crime, man. Okay, let me give you another example. Prostitution. Where prostitution is illegal, so take Hunts Point in New York, you have, spreading of disease, STDs all over the place, a lot of violence all over the place. The women are manhandled and hurt and assaulted, and it's a problem, right? Now, look at where prostitution is legal, just outside of Las Vegas. There's never been a single STD transmitted. Now, why is that? Because you have the government, they step in and say, all right, here are the rules. Here are the rules that you have to abide by. And we're also going to test the girls, whatever it is, every week or every month to make sure that they don't come down with something, they don't catch something. So it's safe, it's regulated, people have protections, they have benefits, they get paid a decent wage. So the problem with these different areas, whether it's prostitution or whether it's drugs, the problem arises when they are illegal. Okay? If they weren't illegal and you taxed it, regulated it, and looked after it, well then in that case everything would work out smoothly. Everything would be fine. That's not to say things would be perfect. It's not to say all crime would disappear, but it certainly would lower the crime rates. So another example is that, 60,000 people that died on the border in a literal drug war that we're fighting? Like 60,000 people dead from actually fighting with guns over drugs on the border of the U.S. and Mexico. Those 60,000 people wouldn't die if drugs were legalized and you put the cartels out of business. Guess what? If Anheuser-Busch or, name your pharmaceutical company, if they decide to get into the marijuana business, the Mexican cartels aren't going to be able to keep up with those guys. The guys with even bigger political connections that have the suits and ties and are already these powerhouses, no, they would crush the cartels and put them out of business. And I'm no fan of corporate America, but if I have a choice between corporate America and some cartel that chops off people's heads in Guadalajara, I'm going with corporate America. So again, the problem is because it's illegal, there's violence associated with it and crime associated with it. If it was legalized, taxed, and regulated, everything would be much better. And we're finally learning this with this new criminology study right here.